Welcome back to TECHMIMIC, where you can simply view, imitate, replicate, and get on with your day. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to configure an AMD Radeon graphics card in your FreeBSD system. I will explain how to configure this for your specific AMD Radeon card, but I don't have a fancy video card in my test system. I am just using a somewhat older AMD Radeon 550, clearly not meant for gaming, but only to serve its purpose for a second monitor next to my onboard Intel graphics card. This is a freshly installed system, so now let's start from the command line, because there is currently no X window, WAYLAND or any graphical desktop environment like XFCE, KDE or GNOME installed. This can be done at a later time. I have physically installed the AMD Radeon card in my computer and have started FreeBSD. And in this case, FreeBSD version 14.3. As a first step, let's check the available graphics cards by querying the PCI devices with the command PCI-conf-lv pipe grep -B3 display. The GPU has been detected and is recognized as an AMD Lexa Pro Radeon 540/550 series. Now we need to install the correct AMD driver. According to the section Graphics Drivers in the FreeBSD handbook, a link is in the description below for your convenience. FreeBSD does indeed support AMD graphics cards with a dedicated chapter specifically describing how to configure AMD GPUs. The exact method will depend on the generation of the hardware, simply meaning that newer cards will require a different approach than older cards. What method is needed is very conveniently listed in the AMD graphics support metrics. So let me find my card, an AMD Radeon 550, and although this one isn't specifically listed, I would say that the Radeon 580 comes closest. It has a green status of Works, and the minimum version of FreeBSD required is 11.2, so we are just fine. You can see newer AMD GPUs that will require a higher level of FreeBSD, for example the RX 6700, and you can see in the last column that older cards or legacy hardware require the Radeon KMS kernel module, and newer cards require the AMD GPU kernel module. My card, although around 8 years old, is according to this table a modern card. The kernel modules are actually provided by the DRM-kmod package, short for Direct Rendering Manager kernel module, that includes all of the AMD graphics drivers. So let's install this first by typing pkg install drm-kmod and type Y for yes. Now you have to load the correct kernel module, and in my case that is AMD GPU as found earlier in the table. Type sysrc kld_list + AMD GPU. And with the command kld-stat, you can check the loaded kernel modules, but at this point AMD GPU is not visible because it isn't loaded yet, so let's reboot the machine. Things are looking good because before we get a chance to check if the module is loaded, the first indication that graphics are working and that something has changed is that if you have a modern display panel, for example a 4K panel, the text of your terminal becomes too small to comfortably read. If you would have a desktop manager installed, this is not an issue, you can change the resolution from there, but because at this point I'm running FreeBSD in text-only mode, I would like to make the text larger again. So at this point I will have to get my glasses out, but I will zoom in a little bit so you can see it, and then run kld-stat again. And indeed, there are now several AMD GPU kernel drivers active. This could be all that is needed, because maybe you can already read the text on your screen just fine, and you can now install a desktop manager that will pick up the AMD configuration and you can take it from there. Links are in the description to the various dedicated step-by-step videos to the desktop environments like XFCE, KDE, Cinnamon, GNOME, and also there are videos to HYPRLAND and WAYFIRE. Once the AMD graphics card is working, and if your display panel is more modern, for example a 4K panel, the text of your terminal becomes too small as there is some form of auto-detection going on during the startup process, and you are left with really small text. In the desktop manager, we could scale this back, but here in the terminal, we will have to configure it manually. Alternatively, if you have an old Full HD panel laying around, you can connect it and then take your glasses off again. I will zoom in here so we can all read it, but in reality, it will still be very small at this point. We need to make a change to the file /boot/loader.conf. I'm using the easy editor today, but you can use your favorite editor. ee/boot/loader.conf. And then add the line kern.vt.fb.default_mode equals, and then the graphics mode between double quotes. You can start with 1920 by 1080 Full HD and see if things become more readable. The resolution specified here is just for the terminal, because as stated, our desktop manager will make it easy for you to change the resolution and scale if you need to. You could also use 1024 by 768, which is XGA with a 4:3 standard resolution, but I would like to go for SVGA, and that is 800 by 600. Save and exit the file. And then reboot the machine for the changes to take effect. And the text is now readable again. Meanwhile, I've installed XFCE, where I am currently running a resolution of 1920 by 1080, but under the display settings, the higher resolutions are available for selection as well. A quick check with the screen fetch utility shows the same resolution, and the GPU listed is the Radeon 540/550. That's it. Hope it helped, and if it did, please like the video and keep it up. Until next time, bye!